Brazzaville, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J. Loren Norris.
More than 30 years ago, I had an interview. It was a job interview for a part-time job, a side hustle, because I was already on active duty in the Air Force. The boss, Leota Henson, was interviewing me to work with her security company, both as a sales rep and a security guard. It was an interesting job. It was an interesting company. It was an interesting Leota. Leota was a multimillionaire in her mid-70s. She had outlived all 6 of her children, her husband, and 4 of her grandchildren. Fascinating, fascinating woman. But I remember her telling me some very wise, at the time I thought they were just quips, but they were deeply profound. She became a mentor over the next few years while I worked for her and lived in that area. I lost contact with her. Here was one of her quips that had deep, abiding wisdom in it. And to this day, I hold this quip with great value. And I think after today's episode of Leading Leaders, you might as well. Here's what she said. I'm not listening as much to what you're saying as I am to what you're not saying. I'm not listening as much to what you're saying as I am to what you're not saying. In that job interview, it seemed a little uncomfortable. 30 years later, it is a valuable asset as a leader. That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I can tell you there have been a whole lot of times that if I just listened to what someone was saying, I too would have been a victim of their misleading intentions. But having learned early on, in my very early 20s, that it's often more important to listen to what they're not saying. The words they're intentionally leaving out, the ideas they don't really want to articulate. The intention is often hidden in the layers. You've probably seen and heard the old, read between the lines idea. Well, you do have to read between the lines. You've got to listen not only to what people are saying, but to what they refuse to say. Because they're refusing to say it, thinking they're hiding something. Truth is, they're not hiding anything. They may be obfuscating their responsibilities and obscuring their intentions from their point of view, but most people with any kind of leadership skill, any kind of training on reading people, body language, eye movement, neurolinguistic programming, anything like that, any kind of negotiation skills training that you've taken will equip you to overcome somebody who's intentionally deceptive, especially by simply leaving things out. Why do you think when you swear in court to tell the truth, it's not just tell the truth, it's will you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Meaning, don't leave out parts that are vital to the truth, and don't mix it together with stuff that isn't truth. Now, if you haven't figured out by now that there's a narrative that supports an agenda that's driven by a purpose that kind of dominates the world right now, you've got your head under a rock. If you have, on the other hand, recognized that there is an agenda and it is supporting a purpose And it is driven by narratives all over the world, through news media, through political circles, through leadership circles, from corporate America to the daily lives of people and the policies that are made about how much rainwater you can store. Did you know that? Did you know there's places where there is a law against capturing too much rainwater and not returning it back to the city? True story. If it's raining on your house and you have a bucket over too big a size, you can be fined for that. If you have solar panels on your roof and you have generated through the sun and the solar panels that you paid for more electricity than your household needs, you're required by law to give it back to the city. That's a really bizarre idea. That you're not supposed to have gas stoves. In some places, you can no longer build a new home with a gas stove in it. Every commercial kitchen that loves to cook uses a gas stove. It's easier to control the amount of energy that you're using and the amount of heat you're transferring to the food because you don't have that lag time to warm up and then cool off again, and creating a very sharp curve or a slow curve on your heat cycle. You can create a very short cycle. You can turn it up and glaze something and then turn it right back off again and cool it down the way you're supposed to. It's necessary in cooking. But in order to save the children, who for the last 100+ years haven't had any issue with LP gas, natural gas, now all of a sudden we have to get rid of that. Well, you might ask, what's behind an agenda to get rid of gas stoves? Is it also gas barbecue grills? How about gas water heaters? How about gas heating in your home? Well, the answer is yes. All of the above. Well, how's that going to save the planet? Not sure. I'm not a scientist. But it is curious to me that this came on the radar in the last 2 or 3 months, and already as a global issue. There are new policies being written all over the world. Governments, local governments and national governments are on the bandwagon of banning everything operating on natural gas, converting it all to electricity. Hang on. Have you not seen that we have rolling brownouts and in some places blackouts for days at a time when people are out of electricity, whether it's because of storms or because there's too much demand on the grid? Have you not seen that our grid is fragile all over the world, that a bullet from a deer rifle can take down cities for days at a time? Much less a rocket launcher from a desert sand somewhere. The grid of electricity is not nearly as stable as many would like you to believe. So now my question is, what's the agenda behind the narrative that says we've got to get rid of gas stoves, we've got to get rid of charcoal, we've got to get rid of coal? You can't be burning things that, leave a residue of any sort. It's got to be all electricity. Don't ask them how they generate electricity. Because that's water and dams and windmills and solar, and they represent about 18%. The rest of it is natural gas, nuclear power, and coal-powered power plants that generate the electricity. Strangest thing I've ever seen. But we still have to ask the question, is it about saving the earth? Is it about saving the money? Is it about a newer form of technology? Is it about greener energy? Or is it about a move that dynamically shifts both money and power into different hands than the petroleum companies? Maybe you've thought back about OPEC and Halliburton and some of these other companies where the generational wealth has been in the hands of a limited number of families around the globe. And those natural resources have produced a lot of wealth and a lot of independent freedom and built a lot of businesses. But by getting rid of those things, we move that wealth to another industry, electricity. You might also notice, so long as I can light a fire in my fireplace, turn on my gas stove from the little propane bottle in the back, fire up my grill and cook my dinner, unless you send someone specifically to my house to put out the fire on my grill or put out the fire in my fireplace, you can't stop me from cooking and feeding myself. But in the same way that the grid is fragile, the grid is controllable. If 40,000 people live in one city and one power line goes down from an ice storm, 40,000 people can be out of power. restored at the convenience of those who restore those things. But don't think for a moment there's not a switch that would do exactly the same thing. Leave you without power, without heat, without the ability to charge your car, without the ability to cook, without hot water, without AC in the summer or your furnace in the winter, at the flip of a switch. Do what we tell you to, or you live in the dark ages. Now, I hate to think that our world has become that nefarious, that the agenda driving the narrative is so deep and dark that we would find ourselves in a place where those elites who want to control the masses would drive everyone to live in cities, live only on electricity, and know that they have their hand on the switch at any moment to turn off your power. I'd hate to think that that's true. But my friend's wisdom was so powerful. I'm not listening to what you are saying as much as I'm listening to what you're not saying. The big mouths that are talking on all sorts of platforms all over the world are talking about a danger that they've suddenly discovered that has no evidence to its discovery over the last 100+ years. But suddenly it's a danger. Suddenly it's a problem. And it is ironic that that sudden supposed danger stacked on top of all these other massive changes really, while they would never say this is about controlling the masses, it really kind of leads to that conclusion. It's not what they're saying, it's what they're not saying. Now, as a leader, you've got to be able to delineate this too, because as a leader, it's not just about you. It's about the organization that you lead. It's about the people that you influence. It's about the words that come out of your mouth and the voices that you're echoing and the voices that are echoing you. There is a narrative afoot. It's coming in from many different angles. And sometimes a little different piece of the narrative will come from a little different narrator. But if you listen close to what they're saying and closer to what they're not saying, you'll realize those agendas are the same. They're just using different narratives to get to the point. One group attacks coal, another attacks oil, another attacks heating fuel, and another attacks natural gas. One goes after the climate, another after family identity, another after sexual orientation, another after sexuality altogether, another after religion. And it seems as though you're being attacked on every front, and the truth of the matter is, it's one agenda with a multi-pronged approach. If you think I'm kidding, just go back and look at World War II, World War I, the Romans, the Greeks, the invasion of Normandy. Every one of these major world-changing cataclysmic shifts on Earth and human societies had one focal point, but multiple directions of attack. You got to flank them. You got to come in from more than one direction. So here's the question. Which narrative will you confront to bring down the agenda that's bringing down society? As a leader, part of your role is to be a voice of influence. It's an expectation that the world has of you. That's why you're a leader. It's how you got to be a leader. Because people recognize that your voice helps. What you have to say, the way that you think, the directions that you follow, the people who've influenced you, make life better for a lot of people around you. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning because I wasn't feeling well, and I saw a meme on LinkedIn. And the meme said, if one monkey hoarded all the bananas, more bananas than they could ever eat, and left all the other monkeys starving, we would study that monkey to figure out what the heck is wrong with him. But as humans, that behavior will get you on the cover of Forbes. Okay. I hope I don't have to, for this audience, explain to you the deep level of Marxist thinking that's embedded in that meme. It's real easy to go, yeah, stupid monkey, he's hoarding all the bananas, nobody else is going to get bananas. It's really easy to take the sides with the hegemony that is the one monkey gathering all the bananas. Never mind the fact that there is no mention whatsoever that he took by force the bananas from everybody else who doesn't have bananas, that he refused to share the bananas, or that the monkeys that had no bananas were sitting back playing Xbox and doing absolutely nothing to protect, defend, or provide. The accusation instead is that we as humans are selfish and greedy and heartless, and that we as humans only desire to take from everyone. My reply was simple. Look, we've got to lead the narrative too. And the narrative really might want to be, why would we want to take away from the only one doing the work, actually gathering the bananas, and give them to those who either are unwilling or unable to work? Same scenario, completely different narrative, because there's a different agenda driving it. There's a really ancient phrase that says, if a man wants to eat, let him work. Meaning, don't bar him from working. Don't prevent him from being able to do the thing that provides sustenance for him and those he's responsible for. But if you're not going to let him work, now he's at your mercy. Universal basic income, ring a bell? This Marxist ideology, this agenda to bring everybody under control, it looks like poverty. It looks like a benevolent king gone awry. But first you've got to believe that there is a benevolent king or benevolent government that's all on your side, and the only thing they will ever do is for your good. They would never do anything to control you. They would never do anything to make you submit. They would never do anything afoul of you. It's all for your better, because they know better than you what's good for you. See, we start twisting all these things together, we begin to realize the ability to turn on and off your car from 1,000 miles away because you're going the wrong direction at the wrong speed, because you pulled into a McDonald's drive-thru when you're already overweight and on blood pressure medicine that the government's paying for. When they can turn off your credit card because they don't like the things that you buy. Yeah, that's the result, if you will, of this central currency. It's all one agenda. It's about you losing your liberty. It's about you surrendering your life and control of your life to those who know better than you. Those who perceive themselves as better than you. When I say leaders need to lead the narrative, leaders need to listen as much to what's not being said as they are to what's being said. Let me also be really clear on this. Leading the narrative means identifying those things that are most important to you and talking about them until you have no breath left. Also understand, sometimes it's not what you say, it's what you don't say that resonates the loudest. It's not what you are silent about, meaning you have no opinion, but the things that you refuse to agree with, the things that you refuse to proclaim. You can lead the narrative through refusing to comply. You can lead the narrative by speaking up about those things which are wrong, untrue, misleading, destructive, damaging. And if by some chance you think you found yourself in 2023 and nothing that matters to you is under attack, you're not looking. Family is under attack. Your money is under attack. Your business is under attack. Your social structure is under attack. Your form of government is under attack. Your faith is under attack. And I don't care what your faith is. Baptist, Buddhist, Mormons, or Methodists. Your faith is under attack because, and you got to listen to Solzhenitsyn or Jordan Peterson or some of the old writings from Russia. Now, go back as far as you can. The brothers, I've got the book, I can't recall the name. The brothers talked about how religion, any form of faith to any god, is an obstacle to communism, because the only benevolent feature of communism is the government. Everybody else is on a level playing field, and only the elites of government should be worshipped, should be trusted to take care of you. So your faith, regardless of what your faith is, if it's not under attack right now, it will be soon. Maybe they didn't come for you first, but they're still coming for you. It's not just in what they say. Listen to what they won't say, what they refuse to say, what they will not acknowledge. What is a woman? Oh, I'm not a biologist. I can't answer that question. Really? Because I think your children would confess that you are a woman, a mother who gave birth to children. That's a pretty significant something you won't say. Do we have a problem with illegal immigration? Well, we do have some heightened levels of unnatural migration. Wait, what? Unnatural migration? What is that? Are we just playing with words here? It's not just what they will say, it's what they refuse to say. As a leader, you're responsible for being able to parse those things out in your head and change the dialogue. I don't mean change the meaning of the words, I mean stick to the meaning of the words and speak what they're unwilling to speak. Call them on the carpet. Your local leaders in your school board, your HOA, your city government, the mayor and the city council, your county government, your county commissioners, at the state level, all the way up to the national level, to those who are, like John Kerry, an unelected global government figure. Where do you get a job like that? But the impact that his voice makes is a leadership level impact that will cost you your livelihood if you're not careful, the quality of your family, your right to parent, your right to choose the education for your children, your right to cook on your own barbecue grill in the backyard. Ask John Kerry about it. I'm not kidding. Do your research. Look it up. For now, though, you need to know that as a leader, part of your job is to lead the narrative. Listen not just to what they're saying, but to the things they refuse to say. And then ask about the agenda that's behind it. How many multi-pronged approaches are coming after your life? And what are you doing to counter it? I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Thousand eight.